joining me for the very first time, I'll introduce myself. I'm Michelle Mirapur from Organized Life by Michelle, and I have partnered up with JK Moving Services to bring you this Wednesday webinar series called Workspace Wednesdays, Making It Work for You. So every week we have a different topic, and the topics, as I mentioned, are posted in the on the landing page. So that's jkmoving.com/workspace. The replays are also there. And we do about 35 minutes, including Q&A. You're welcome to type any questions you have in the chat window, share. I encourage participation and interaction. And at the end of the webinar, we send out a survey, and I encourage you all to fill out the survey because that will give me feedback. So I'll know what your favorite part was, what your takeaways were, and what other topics you'd like to hear about in future sessions. So today's topic is going to be getting organized and working from home so you can be productive and efficient working from home. And the first thing I wanted to talk about is the benefits of being organized. So I'm sure a lot of you know that there are great benefits, but it's always good to be reminded of them. The very first benefit is that it gives you clarity. So I always say a clutter-free space leads to a clutter-free mind. And usually when you have a lot of clutter in your space, it's pretty indicative of what is going on up here. So you might have a lot of jumbled up thoughts and different things going on that are not allowing you to focus on what you need to do. So it's really important, for me at least, to clear out the extra clutter that could be on my desk or in the room that I'm planning on working in, and making sure that I have a nice clear space to work off of so that I can focus on my thoughts and the project and the task at hand. The second benefit is productivity. I always notice a spike in my productivity when things are organized. Even if I have a few extra file folders maybe on the desk that don't pertain to that project, it's kind of like eating away at me, like why is that there? I need to move that out of the way so I can just focus and be productive on what I need to be doing. The third benefit is efficiency. So I do feel like I'm much more efficient when everything is in its place because I can find what I need and I don't have to fumble around and look for things. There's actually a few statistics going around. One of them is that the average American on a daily basis spends about 55 minutes looking for items that they cannot find. And these are items that they know they have them, but they just can't find them. And if you do the math, I believe that comes out to about 2 weeks out of the year that you have just wasted your life looking for items. Isn't that an amazing statistic? So that kind of puts it in perspective for you. So it's really good to be efficient and make sure that you can find the things you need them when you need them. The fourth benefit is energy. I always have so much more energy when things are organized. You walk into a room with clutter and it typically makes you feel a certain way, right? I'm going to throw up a picture in my background and I want you all to tell me how this makes you feel, because it's very important to sense when something is off. Okay, so take a look at this picture. How does that make you all feel? It's pretty wild, right? And these are actual pictures from clients' spaces. How does that make you feel? Mariana says stress. Jennifer says, I want to run away. Elizabeth says, forget it. Jamie says, oh my God. And Kanaya says, this is an eyesore. Yes, absolutely. And David feels anxious. So that is exactly what happens. When you have clutter, clutter is negative energy. That's why you are sensing all of these negative emotions. Anxiety, stress, you just want to throw in the towel and run away and forget about it. That's what clutter does to you. You might not notice it all the time, but if you ever feel like, oh, I'm off, why am I not able to focus or be productive or get anything done. Nothing's happening today. You know, I'm just not feeling the same as normal. Take a look at your space and see if there's anything that is causing you anxiety. And typically when you look at an area in your house, pay attention to the feelings that come up. So if you start to get nervous, anxious, or whatever is happening within you, that's a good indication that that area that caused that emotion is probably the problem area that needs to be focused on and removed in terms of your clutter. Okay, so let me throw up another picture. How does this make you feel? Everything is in its place. You've got nice little, if you notice the white, I'm going to stand up here. So if you notice right over here, all of these white kind of magazine holders, those are all, and you can write labels on them too, those are all holding the actual files, and they're not visible, they're not sticking out, everything's kind of tucked away. And then you see the bins, so different things are in the bins. Sometimes you have a lot of cords and cables, and you can throw those in the bins and make sure those are out of the way. Sometimes I prefer clear containers so that you can actually see the items in the containers. So if you're reaching in for your office supplies or a cable or a charger or whatever the case is, and you've got them tucked away, while this is nice, and this is, you know, that person's preference, my personal preference is having it in a clear container so you can see the item, and that reduces the extra time that you need to go hunting. Because imagine pulling out every single one of those bins or opening up every drawer. Well, where did I put it? Where did I put it? Unless you actually put a label on the outside of each drawer or each bin. Okay, so let me go to the chat window. David is saying he feels inspired. Mitch feels calm. Jennifer says at peace. Elizabeth says a place where I want to be. Keith says clarity. Jamie says super organized. I'm jealous. Kanayo very organized. Tawan relaxed. And Kanayo also says I wish that was my house or office. James says I closed my real office and moved into the spare bedroom. Oops, it just scrolled by. Spared bedroom, like so many people, right? I'm missing the filing cabinets. Yes, I know. Dell says, I love having organized, everything organized, but in a shared office at home, it seems people are not as tidy as me and my family. Absolutely. So that's the thing, is when you are sharing a space, you also have the other person's stuff. So imagine you are working in a shared space with your spouse. Let me throw up another picture. Okay. So this, oh, nope, that one doesn't have it. 1 second. This space right here. So imagine you are working in a shared space with your spouse. Wouldn't this be nice? You have your section over here, and then your spouse has their section on that side, and you each have your filing cabinets, and then you've got cabinets overhead and cabinets below as well. Everything is kind of tucked away, and neither one of you is feeling the anxiety of the other person's items in their space. So that's really important, that when you have a shared workspace, you communicate to the other person. A lot of times I hear that one person in the household, if it's a husband and wife team, typically one of the spouses has a very messy tendency, and the other one is very organized, and it really bothers them. And sometimes it's the wife and sometimes it's the husband. And I hear this complaint all the time. And I always tell my clients that if we are going to do an organizing session, it's important to bring that spouse into it so they see how it's done, and they'll be inspired to keep their space organized as well. Because if you're sharing the space, you're going to be sharing the energy. And remember all the different positive emotions that came up when you saw the clear space: calm, peace, clarity. Doesn't that sound a lot better than stress, anxiety, and I want to run away? And that's what we want to have in our space, whether it's at the office or at the home. We want to make sure that we always have those positive feelings and emotions. Let's see, Cheryl says, not happening. I'm not sharing office space. Right, so if you know that your spouse or your partner just can't keep it organized, then it's best that you stay in your own space so you can at least focus on what you need to do. So the other benefit, I talked about energy, and the other benefit is time gained back. So remember the statistic that I mentioned? You actually save a lot of time, even if it's a tiny little task of putting your things in a proper drawer. Let me throw up a picture. How many people have supplies all over their desk? And how many people actually organize them and tuck them away in a drawer and know exactly where to find your Post-it notes and your spare staples and your pens and everything? Dell says, where do I start? That is a good question. And let me throw up the picture and then I'll answer that question. So this picture, and I'll get back to the picture in a second. So where do you start? I always tell people, start with the area that's causing you the most stress. And sometimes people say it is a surface, and sometimes they say it's in a drawer, and sometimes they say it's the stuff that they have hanging on the wall. It's kind of like all over the place, calendars and pictures and notes and whiteboards, and it's causing them too much stress. Start with that area because we want quick wins. We want to be able to knock out one area, feel really good about it, and then move on to the next one. And by starting on the one that causes you the most stress, you've now cleared away a big portion of that negative energy that was bringing you that stress. Okay? Now, let's, Elizabeth says, too much stuff on my desk for sure. Yes. Cheryl says, mine are all organized. Excellent. And Keith says, yes, I do. Okay, what are you referring to, Keith? Now, let me stand up here and show you this drawer. And you can see that the Post-it notes are in here, the cable is in there, and then you've got other little accessories like clips down here. You've got your, over in the far corner, you've got your stamps. So everything is nice and organized, spare staples, everything is in there. So how easy is it to find what you need if you open up a drawer and it looks like this, as opposed to things scattered all over the desk? This might not seem like a big deal initially, but in the long run, every single minute that you spend organizing, you've actually gained back an hour. Okay, let me repeat that. Every single minute that you spend organizing, you have gained back an hour. That is huge. Who doesn't want an extra hour in their day? That is huge. So think about that the next time you think that this is maybe insignificant. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to focus on something else. Sometimes all you need is a few minutes. Okay, if you don't know how much time to spend, whatever time you have, that's the answer. If you have 5 minutes, you spend 5 minutes. If you have 2 minutes, spend 2 minutes. But I guarantee you that you will feel good. Sometimes all I need to do is pick up a stack of papers and literally shred them and take them out into the recycling. And I feel so amazing after I come back. And that doesn't take very much time at all. I'm not talking about organizing the papers. I'm talking about a stack that I already had put aside and I knew needed to be shredded. And let's say I didn't make the time to do it. But if I feel like, you know, something's not right in my space and I feel like I need to shift some energy around, I'll look over at the stack and say, well, why don't I do this? Because I know what I need to do. I just need to do it. Shred that stack, throw it in recycling, and remove it from your space. And that takes less than 2 minutes, and then you feel better already. Okay, let's see in the chat window. Mariana says, my space is a hot mess. Okay, you're not the only one, Mariana. Dell says, I did sort through all my mail and threw out the junk mail. That definitely helped. Yes, junk mail. If junk mail piles up, that causes stress because you have so many things to go through. I make it a habit of walking into the mailroom. I live in a condo. Right now I'm staying with my family in a house, but typically in my condo building, I walk into the mailroom, grab my mail. We have a recycling bin right there. Immediately I toss away all the junk mail. Immediately. I don't even want to take it up to my apartment. And then when I take up the things that I do need in my apartment, I know exactly what to do with them. If they're bills, I will put them on my desk to be handled. And if they're magazines that I want to look at later, I'll put them somewhere else. But I will not stack everything up so it causes me stress looking at it over and over again. I handle it immediately, or I know it needs to be looked at and referenced later. So that's always a good idea to do that with your mail. Keith says, I know where my Post-it notes and pens are. Good, excellent. Mariana says, mail is definitely the most stressful item in my world. Yes, mail is very stressful because we get so much of it. We get digital mail, we get regular mail, we get inundated with so much paper and so much information. I call it digital clutter. In fact, I think in this country, we get more than any other country. When I was traveling through Europe a couple years ago, and I met someone in the UK, and they asked me what I did for a living back in the States, and I told them I'm a professional organizer. Guess what their response was? They said, oh, that's such an American thing. And it just made me realize, are we that bad? And we do get a lot of junk. We are inundated with so much junk, if you think about it. And other people, they don't get that. So we're at a disadvantage when it comes to that. So we need to really sharpen our organizing skill set and be able to go through that junk and eliminate the unnecessary stuff right away. And I'll share a funny story with you. My dad, one time, he said, you know, I have so many bills that they're piling up. I haven't been able to address them and they're causing me stress. So you know what I did? I said, what'd you do, Dad? He said, I just picked up the trash can and swept all the bills off the desk into the trash can. And I said, I am going to be calm about it this month and not even think about it, because you know what? They're all going to come back in the mail for next month. But at least this month, I feel good. So sometimes that's what you need to do. Junk will always keep coming. Don't worry about missing out your chance on junk, okay? We don't need the junk. Trust me, none of us needs the junk. Okay, let's see in the chat window, what else do we have? Cheryl says, I no longer bring junk mail into the house. Good for you, Cheryl. Keith says, I like the clear spaces, drawers, etc. Great idea, excellent. Cheryl also says, don't wait. Keep that shredder plugged in when you're in your office. Yes, that's another thing I'm going to talk about. Laudan says, paper clutter stresses me out the most. Absolutely, me too. I can't stand paper clutter. Elizabeth says, junk mail goes straight from the mailbox to the recycle. Yes, to the recycle bin. That's exactly what I do, Elizabeth. Excellent. Okay, so let me go to, we talked about the 5 benefits. Does anyone have any questions about the benefits? Are those pretty clear for you? Before I go on to the tips that I have. I already mentioned one tip, which was getting rid of the junk as soon as you get it in the mail. Okay, another tip is when you sit down to work at your desk, remove all the extra things that might cause distraction. That could be anything from extra file folders, extra documents and notepads or binders. Projects that you're not working on currently should probably not be on the desk, because that is going to distract you and take your focus away from what you need to work on at that moment. Okay, the other items that could be distracting could be if you are facing the wall, and maybe on your wall, as I mentioned before, you might have all kinds of pictures. While they're beautiful family photos, you know, you don't want those extra distractions. You might have a wall calendar, you might have Post-it notes, you might have a whiteboard, and then if you glance up and you start looking at these things, well, guess what? You've just broken your focus. And if you want to stay absolutely focused, I recommend you turn your back away from that wall. Let me show you a couple of pictures and see how these pictures make you feel. Okay, so we have this picture right here. Okay. Now this picture, the desk is clearly facing the wall. Look at all the things on the wall. Okay, so we've got the calendars that I mentioned, we've got the little photos and notes up here, we've got a to-do list on the far corner, and then we've got all the supplies. It's beautiful, don't get me wrong, it's all removed from the desk and it's put up on the wall and organized very nicely, but me personally, if my desk was facing this wall, I couldn't get any work done. It's utterly distracting for me. So my suggestion would be to take that beautifully organized wall and reposition your desk so that your back is to this wall. Let me show you a picture of what that would look like. Okay, maybe that's not the best picture, or we might have to go with that photo. Let's see if this works any better. Okay, so this one right here, you've got that wall behind you, and then you've got your desk here with very minimal things on it, just your computer, a couple of pencils or pens, and then maybe a few notepads over there that you need to reference, and you're facing the window, okay? And one of my other tips is lighting. You want to have some natural light or good lighting in your space to keep you energized and motivated, and you also feel organized when you've got a nice bright room. I love lots of light. Now I want to hear from you. How do you have your desk situated at home? Do you have it up against a wall, and do you have a lot of things on that wall, or do you have it facing out towards a window? And what is your preference? How does each one make you feel? Okay, Cheryl says, no reason to have paper bills come at all. Remove myself. Got it. Yes. Mariana says, I'm reorganizing the downstairs of my home to clear everything out of my office that is unnecessary and to move my desk. Yeah, and sometimes all you need to do is shift a little bit of furniture. If you all are familiar with the concept of feng shui, anytime I shift some furniture around, I immediately feel a shift in energy. That is very important. If you feel like there's some kind of weird feeling going on in that space, you're just not comfortable in it, but you can't explain what it is, that's probably what needs to happen. You move a piece of furniture, you move the positioning of your desk or your chair, or maybe add some lights or bring in a plant or something to make you feel better about your space. Cheryl says, I'd be staring out the window. So for some people, that might be a distraction, and you might want to not put it up against the window. But for those of you who like the natural light and who want a little glimpse of nature every once in a while when you look up from your desk, that might be good for you. Dell says, I'm facing out towards the window because it's light and gives me energy. Yes, absolutely. I feel the same way. I get a lot of energy from the natural light. Mariana says, I want my desk to face a different direction. So make that happen, Mariana. Elizabeth says, personal computer facing window and not as cluttered, work computer facing wall and a bit more cluttered. Okay, so if there's room for you to move it around, maybe you can shift that work computer around as well, so it's not facing the wall. Elizabeth. Mariana says, I'm facing a wall. Cheryl, no windows, only walls. I have lots of light though. Good. Okay. Are your walls distracting or are they clear, Cheryl? Laudan says, I'm in the basement office. I have good lighting, but the desktop is full of stuff. I'll clear it today. Very good. Good, good. Jamie says, I'm facing the kitchen. I see the dishes that need to be done. Maybe I should face the window instead. Yes, give that a try. There's nothing wrong with trying it and testing it out for a day or two. And if you don't like it, you can always shift it back. Amy says, unfortunately, working from home means working from the kitchen table for me. There's nothing wrong with that. I do that plenty of times here at my parents' house. As long as it's not distracting for you, okay? David says, I'm with you, Amy, but facing a window. Cheryl says, it's not clear, but not distracting. Okay, good, excellent. So let me go on to the other tips. We already talked about removing the extra papers from your desk, removing distracting items, and lighting. The other thing that's really important is to have the proper digital tools to organize you. And I always like to recommend two specific tools. One is Evernote, which I use all the time to take my notes, because I don't like writing in notepads and having notepads all over the place, physical notepads or notebooks. I like to have digital notes, and you can organize them very nicely in Evernote. Right in the chat window, if you're already familiar with Evernote, if you already use it, I think it's wonderful. You can create notebooks in Evernote. You can organize all your notes within the different notebooks. You can share your notes with people. I use it all the time. Back when I was in the corporate world, in the IT field, I was a project manager who would go into every single one of my meetings with my laptop and nothing else. No pen, no notepad, and I would be typing all my notes on the computer. And when the meeting was done, within a minute, everyone would have a copy of the notes in their email. And they always wondered how I did that. And I said, it's because I don't write them down, and I don't need to then go and transcribe them and type them up and send them to you. So not only does it keep everything organized, but it also is a huge, huge time saver, and you can share it quickly with people. Okay, so let's see in the chat window. Keith said Evernote is great. Absolutely. Cheryl says she's used it. James says, I have it. I don't use it a lot. Maybe I'll try it again. Absolutely. I recommend it. Jennifer says, I'll need to try this. I'm a notebook person, and I used to be a notebook person too. Don't get me wrong. I loved my notebooks, and I actually love collecting notebooks, but not anymore. Now I'm an Evernote girl. Let's see. Mariana says, I use the note in my Microsoft account. I look into Evernote. I have notebooks everywhere. Okay, yeah, give Evernote a try. Elizabeth says, I use something similar. GoodNotes. Yes, and there's also OneNote. So all of these are very similar. And Jamie says, I use the notes that come with an iPhone. I can never find anything. I've not used Evernote. Is it an app? Yes, it's an app that you can put on your phone, and you can also download it on your laptop. And I've downloaded it on my MacBook Air, and that's where I use it. I don't use the phone version, just the laptop version. Laudan says, I love Evernote, need to ditch all paper notebooks. Absolutely. David says, I'm interested in Evernote for the CRM and Outlook compatibility. Yes, it has so many wonderful features. Mitch says, speech notes, no typing, Android app. Yes, and I like to do a lot of talk texting as well. Okay, so these are all time-saving techniques. And the last thing, which we touched on briefly, was to digitize and shred when possible. So if you have a lot of files, not only should you go through them and make sure that you're not holding on to extra things that you no longer need, get rid of those old files, just get rid of them. And the ones that you do need, make sure that you don't absolutely have to keep a paper copy. If you can digitize, digitize. It saves a lot of space. And if you have to keep a paper copy, then file it away and make sure you have it in a place where you can easily access it when you need it. And anything else that you're getting rid of, just make sure that it doesn't have any PII, personal identifiable information on it, such as your social security or birth date. And if it does, shred it and then throw it in the recycle bin. You don't want to hold on to extra paper, because as we said, paper creates a lot of negative energy. Most people that I help say that paper clutter is what causes them the most anxiety. So trust me, you don't want to keep extra paper when you don't need to. Let's see. Dell says, texting saves a ton of time, but I keep forgetting to do that. Yes, I do it all the time. I'm all about time-saving hacks, and that's one of them, and the virtual digital tools that I mentioned. So I'll take about a minute of questions if anyone has any questions, and then we'll wrap it up. And while you're thinking about your questions, I'll mention again that all the replays are going to be on the website. I'll type it in one more time for you. This is the landing page where you went to register most likely. Let's see here. My chat is slow. Okay, so my chat is not letting me type now for some reason. If someone can type it into the chat window, please. My chat is hung up. The joys of technology. It's wonderful, but as long as it works. So the landing page, if someone could type it into the chat window for me, is www.jkmoving.com/workspace. Okay, and just go there if you want to look at any replays at all, if you want to register for following week's topics. The other thing I want to mention is that the surveys are going to be going out immediately after we finish this webinar. So please submit your feedback so I know what you thought and what other topics you want to hear about. And if you have any questions that come up after this and you need to reach me, you can reach me at askmichelle@jkmoving.com. If someone could type that in there for me. askmichelle@jkmoving.com. Perfect. Thanks, Darlene. And I also have an organizing group on Facebook. If you all would like to join, that's where I share a lot of tips. I keep the conversation going. I do Facebook Lives and different things in there. And so it's a small community where we keep each other organized and accountable, because that's big. If any of you want to join that, then please add me on Facebook. And if someone could type this in for me, it is www.facebook.com/Michelle with 2 L's Mirpour, Mirpour. Add me on Facebook and send me a message and I will add you to the group. It's called Organizing Basics by Michelle. Okay, thanks, Darlene, for typing that in there. Dell says, excellent session. Thank you. Carrie says, thank you. Excellent. Thank you, everyone, for joining today's webinar. And one last thing I want to share with you, because we typed some links in the chat window. You're welcome, Tawan. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Let's go ahead and take a second to save our chat window. And I'm going to go back on my beach where I started. That is my happy place. So just take 1 second, go into the chat window, and you should see 3 little dots at the bottom of your chat window. If you can click on the 3 dots, or it might say more, then you can click on the Save Chat option, and that should save everything for you, so you can always go back and reference the items that we discussed. Okay. Does anyone have any last thoughts before we say goodbye? Let me know. It's always wonderful seeing you all. I love seeing everyone's smiling faces. Thank you so much for joining me.